welcome back to Cinematic Reviews, everybody. Grab some popcorn, get your M&Ms ready, dim those lights, and let's talk Werewolf by Night and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special.
You wanna see this, darling?
Please don't do this. Death is coming for you! Werewolf by Night.
All right, so first up, we're going to be talking about Werewolf by Night, one of the Marvel special presentations that they've been doing. They've been doing quite a few of those with The Punisher, Guardians of the Galaxy, Werewolf by Night, and a few other ones like What If and some of the animated stuff, which is really, really fun. But Werewolf by Night came out on October 7th, 2022 for the Halloween season. And then, of course, Guardians of the Galaxy came out around Christmas time that year, which was really, really fun for Marvel to do, to get some kind of holiday-themed specials going on. Give you a brief summary if you haven't seen this in a while, if you haven't really seen it at all. It centers around these group of monster hunters that are brought together after the death of Ulysses Bloodstone, who was one of like the head hunters, so to speak, and the possessor of the Bloodstone, which is this kind of like an infinity stone-like object that helps defeat monsters. And they are here to figure out who the successor is through this kind of like monster hunt. And this is kind of organized by Verussa, I believe is how you say her name, who is kind of the main antagonist of this story, as she has brought these hunters together to kind of honor Ulysses Bloodstone while also picking the successor for the Bloodstone. Elsa Bloodstone, the daughter of Ulysses, is here as well. She has been kind of like separated from the family, I guess, is how they kind of portrayed it. But she is one of the hunters there that is basically here like, give me my birthright or I'm just going to kill everybody. And that's kind of where this story leads off. We're also introduced to Jack Russell, who ends up being the werewolf by night, so to speak, as the title suggests. He is a monster hiding within the hunter ranks. So they have one of their own that is actually a monster who is trying to protect monsters to his position as a hunter, which is a tale as old as time, but it's a really, really fun and entertaining storyline to go for. Looking at the director, Michael Giacchino, who is most well known as composer Michael Giacchino, is now directing now with this first project helming, and he did a really good job. This was really cool. The music itself was really strong in this presentation. It's what really holds this thing together and makes it kind of feel special in a way, but it also has a really cool like 50s, 60s monster vibe, like the old Dracula movies or the old Werewolf in London movies, like those black and whites, which I'm not a huge fan of black and white, but I did really enjoy this. This was a really cool kind of homage to that vintage monster universe, so to speak, as far as films back in the 50s and 60s, which was really cool to kind of dive into the history of cinema. The cast also kind of surrounds the hunters. Like I said, there's 4 of them, all with their own special abilities. Like you have the archer, you have the brute strength, you have the acrobatic wise, I guess you could say she is. You have Elsa, who is just kind of this smart hunter who has a bloodline and a birthright stake on this Bloodstone. And then you have Jack Russell, who is kind of the odd man out. When you're first introduced to him, you're kind of like, yeah, he's not like everybody else. There's something that he's hiding. Well, it turns out he is a monster, and that's his big secret. But we're also introduced to Ted, or Man-Thing, as he's most well known in the Marvel Universe. He is the monster that has been captured and forced upon the hunters so that whoever is the best of the hunters to kill Ted will get the Bloodstone. Well, Jack is actually here to help him as his friend, which is pretty cool. So that's kind of like a brief synopsis and kind of an overview of the special. It's only like 44 minutes, I think, is what the time is. 52 minutes. I think Guardians of the Galaxy is more in the 44-minute range. But this is around the 50-minute mark, which is really digestible. I like these specials because it's kind of like, it's not really like it's not a 6 or 8 episode show you have to binge. And it's also not a 2.5 hour movie you got to sit there and commit to. It's, let's start this up for the next 40 to 50 minutes, and we're just going to get a really, really cool Marvel side story, which is really awesome. Like the Punisher special, which I think that one was like 30 minutes to 40 minutes, which was really quick, but it's easily digestible as like, okay, I'm just going to sit down for 30 minutes, and I'm going to catch up with the Punisher, which is really cool, and I hope they do more of these specials along the way. All right, let's get to all the categories for Werewolf by Night. Let's roll back the tape and pick out the most iconic scenes. Since this is only like 50 minutes, I tried to cut this down to 3 scenes, and I'll let you know what I think is the most iconic. So first off, we get the corpse of Ulysses Bloodstone talking to the start of the hunt. We had that cool puppeteering with the corpse, and he's moving with like the animatronics, and you have the voiceover tape from Ulysses Bloodstone kind of explaining why they're here, what his plan is, and who will be getting the Bloodstone if they are successful in the hunt. Another one is Jack turning into the werewolf, which is really freaky. It's really awesome how they pull this off, and it really is really reminiscent of the old 50s and 60s monster movies where you have the flashing, blinking lights. You have like the degraded film screens going on, and it's just a bunch of pure chaos. And you have like the cutting back and forth where you don't really get like a big overview. It's more like really quick close-ups, which is a really, really cool camera style. But this scene is really, really awesome when he's turning into the wolf and he's just going on a rampage. And then this last scene I have written down, the werewolf basically wrecking the hunters up and killing them all and just massacring all the security guys, which oddly enough, they really look like TVA agents, which I thought was interesting. They had almost the exact same outfits as the TVA, but I didn't see any TVA logos on them. But I thought that was an interesting choice for them to basically copy and paste the TVA outfits for these guys. But I think the most iconic is that Jack turning into the werewolf. It's very reminiscent, like I keep saying, of the 50s monster movies. It was a really cool aesthetic with the black and white and all the flashing lights and the taser sticks that they were using on him and the music. It was really, really cool. So I think the most iconic is Jack turning into the werewolf. Some lines become legend. Wait for it, Derry. Let's talk favorite quotes. I only had one quote for this, so I guess it wins by default. But this one from Jack: "Just kill me as I am, otherwise there will be no mercy, I promise." This is before he turns into the werewolf, and he's like, you might as well just kill me now, because if you let me turn, I'm going to massacre all of you, which he does. So I thought that was a pretty badass line. Now let's go behind the reel to talk about some facts you might not know about Werewolf by Night. So I got a few here that I thought were interesting. At around the 16 and 31 minute marks, the cigarette burn effect appears in the top right corner of the screen. This is used to appear in old films, indicating the change between reels on the film projectors. Yes, for all you young folks out there that aren't too familiar with the history of film, it wasn't all digital back in the day. You had to swap out the reels of film because it could only hold so much film on it. So that little cigarette burn at the top of the corner indicated that, okay, the projectionist has switched over the film. So I thought it was a really cool effect to really give it that old school monster movie vibe. Really cool. In the comics, the character of Elsa Bloodstone has similarities to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, though it should be noted her creators state they never watched the whole episode. So that's pretty cool that they like subconsciously made her like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer style character. And you can really tell that in this presentation that she is very reminiscent of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, if you've seen that show. Ted chasing Elsa in the labyrinth is slow motion mimics the scene of Hulk chasing Black Widow in the Avengers. I didn't notice that until I went back and rewatched it after knowing this fact. That's pretty cool that they really pulled a lot of that out of that scene, that iconic scene where Scarlett Johansson is running away from the Hulk on the helicarrier in the Avengers. That was pretty cool. And then in the comic books, Werewolf by Night and Man-Thing, or Ted in this case, were members of the original Legion of Monsters, which also included Morbius and Ghost Rider. So maybe Werewolf and Man-Thing are going to show up in the Ghost Rider movie with Ryan Gosling. That'd be pretty cool if they team up and we get that Legion of Monsters. That'd be pretty cool in the future of the MCU. So that is Werewolf by Night in a nutshell. I really enjoyed it. This is a fun presentation, and like I said, I hope they keep doing more of these. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special.
something special he will never forget.
What about someone special?
We're looking for the legendary Kevin Bacon.
We're looking for the legendary Kevin Bacon.
I just said that, Drax.
But your voice is small and mousy. I think maybe he didn't hear you. You're coming with us as a Christmas present. I'm Groot.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to be talking the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special now, which came out on November 25th, 2022. So around the Thanksgiving, Christmas time, which was really cool to get you kind of in the Christmas spirit to kick everything off. Just kind of like Hawkeye did when Hawkeye came out around the Christmas time. Really, really cool. I'll give you a brief synopsis of this. This one's pretty simple. This one's only like 40 minutes long. It's pretty cut and dry. So Peter Quill, Star-Lord, as you may know him, is feeling pretty down because it's on Earth, it's Christmas time, but he doesn't have Yondu anymore, he doesn't have Gamora anymore, so he's feeling pretty down in the dumps. So Mantis, who has a secret, and she turns out that she is his half-sister, so she wants to do something special for her brother in this Earth tradition of Christmas. So her and Drax go to Earth and kidnap Kevin Bacon. You know, Peter Quill has brought up Kevin Bacon a couple times throughout the Guardians side of the MCU, and they get this brilliant idea to kidnap freaking Kevin Bacon, which is hilarious, and I love this kind of storyline that they're going with here, where they're pulling Kevin Bacon in, and it seems like Kevin Bacon had a really fun time on this set doing this little brief presentation, but it's a fun ride. So they kidnap Kevin Bacon, bring him back for Peter Quill, through brainwashing. You know, Mantis uses her powers to brainwash him to make him come with them. And we get a cool musical number with Kevin Bacon. We get the reveal with Peter and Mantis as brother and sister. So it's a really heartwarming story. But that is Guardians of the Galaxy Special. In a nutshell, is Mantis and Drax kidnap Kevin Bacon for Peter Quill. This is set after Avengers Endgame, but before Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which we'll be talking about in a few weeks on the show. So this kind of gives you an idea where this is set up. Directed by James Gunn, of course, who has been directing all the other Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. Currently involved with DC Studios now, but this is when he was like neck deep in Guardians of the Galaxy lore and in charge of that part of the MCU, which is really, really cool. Going to briefly go through the cast. I've already mentioned pretty much everyone here, but we got Peter Quill, Star-Lord, returning, played by Chris Pratt, who is awesome. Mantis, played by Pom Klementieff, who's great in here. Drax, Dave Bautista. Groot, who's of course voiced by Vin Diesel, and then we have Rocket, who's voiced by Bradley Cooper. Rocket's not in here as much, and so is Groot. Because it's only 42 minutes long, you can only have so much screen time. Nebula, played by Karen Gillan again. Kraglin, played by Sean Gunn, the brother of James Gunn. And we're introduced to Cosmo the dog, which we'll get more of in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But she's a fun time. I love Cosmo the dog. It seems like she's got a really good vibe with Rocket and all that, so it's really cool to see Cosmo the dog in here. Yondu in an animated flashback, which was really cool. That I think this is in the fun facts segment today, but the style of animation they chose for the flashback of Christmas with Yondu is really, really cool. And then, of course, Kevin Bacon as Kevin Bacon himself, which was really, really cool. So that kind of rounds up the cast there. Let's roll back the tape, just like we did Werewolf by Night, but we're going to pick the most iconic scene from the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. So again, I got 3 options here, and I'll let you know what I think is the most iconic. First, we have the Christmas song to Peter, which was really, really good, actually. I'd put it on the show, but, with copyright infringement and all that, I wouldn't be able to play it, but it's really, really good Christmas song. Go ahead and check that out on YouTube or watch the clip. It's a really good song that they learned to kind of help Peter celebrate Christmas. And then Drax and Mantis, of course, kidnapping Kevin Bacon in his own house in Hollywood, and then they run up into the cops, and a bunch of chaos unfolds. That's a really fun scene there. And then Mantis and Drax gifting everybody, including Groot and Rocket. Rocket gets Bucky's metal arm, which was a kind of a wink-wink to the comment he made in Infinity War, where he's like, how much for the arm? Then Groot gives everybody presents. Mantis gives Peter the present of "I'm Your Sister." It was really, really touching. And while this is all going on, Kevin Bacon is singing with that band that first was singing to Peter at the beginning of the special, which was really, really fun. I think the most iconic for me is Drax and Mantis kidnapping Kevin Bacon. It's such a fun sequence of them breaking into his house. They each find a piece of his decorations they really like. Mantis has the giant candy cane. Drax has his little funny man that he loves carrying around. And it's just complete chaos trying to kidnap Kevin Bacon. It's really fun. Some lines become legend. Wait for it, Derry. Let's talk favorite quotes once more, but for Guardians of the Galaxy. So I got actually a few more lines here. So Drax, while being shot by the bullets, stop it, Tickles, stop, I'm going to pee my pants. That's really funny. This one from Peter, you got me, a human being as a present. Kevin Bacon, hello, I'm the Batman, as he's trying to be an actor. Drax, I want the little funny man. And then Nebula, wow, I guess all actors aren't complete pieces of shit. I think the most legendary or iconic line is, and the one that makes me laugh the most, is probably Drax getting shot by the bullets. Stop it, Tickles. Stop. I'm going to pee my pants. I'm a 6-year-old kid at heart. I'm going to laugh at that because it's really funny. I really like that line. And the way Dave Bautista acts, just as Drax in general, is hilarious. Next, let's go behind the reel for Guardians of the Galaxy and talk about some facts you might have not have known about it. So first up, it was shot during the production of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, so they were doing these simultaneously, of course. In the comics, Cosmo the Space Dog is male, but in this special, she is a female, voiced by Maria Bakalova. This harkens back to the actual Soviet Space Dog program, where many of the canines were female, including Laika, the very first Earth-born creature in space, which Cosmo is based on. So they really went back to the lore of the original Soviet Space Dog with it being a female, which I respect. I'm not attached to the character, so I really don't care if it's male or female. It's just a fun time having Cosmo the dog in here. And then for the flashback scene, they used old school rotoscoping animation in the style of Ralph Bakshi films that James Gunn watched growing up, and to give the 1970s and 80s nostalgic Christmas special feel. They filmed actors Luke Klein, Michael Rooker, and Sean Gunn, and then traced the footage frame by frame. Luke's features were altered to more closely resemble young Peter. Rooker's fin was added, of course, and then Sean was reduced in size to his younger self, which was pretty cool. So that animation style really brings you back to the old 70s and 80s Christmas cartoons that you might have seen throughout your years, but that was a really cool kind of like a reminiscence. Let's honor the vintage 70s and 80s Christmas specials here with this one. So really, really cool. So yeah, like Werewolf by Night, I really enjoyed this special. I hope they keep doing these. This one was really fun because Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite parts of the MCU. So out of the two, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is my favorite of these two. But I think my favorite special so far is probably The Punisher, One Last Kill. It's really short. It's like 25 to 30 minutes long. But Bernthal is really freaking good in there. And the story that they were telling was really awesome about trauma and loss and PTSD and all that. It was really, really well done. But I love these specials, and I hope they keep doing them. It's really fun side stories for the MCU. All right, let's head over to the rankings for both of these specials. Perfectly balanced, as all rankings should be. Let's take a look at the MCU rankings for Werewolf by Night and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. So, Werewolf by Night, let me pull up the rankings here real quick. See if I can find it in my docs here. So, Werewolf by Night comes in at number 30 on the MCU list. And Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special comes in at number 27. So looking what's around it, Black Panther at 21, Ant-Man and the Quantumanium 22, which we'll be talking about next week on the show, Ant-Man and the Wasp at 23, Ant-Man at 24, WandaVision at 25, the first Avengers movies at 26, like I said, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special at 27, Moon Knight at 28, Thor: Love and Thunder at 29, and then, like I said, Werewolf by Night at 30. I like the Guardians of the Galaxy Special a little bit more than Werewolf by Night, even though Werewolf by Night was really, really good. I'm just more attached to the Guardians because we've had 2 previous movies. They've popped up in the Avengers movies, so I'm a little more attached to that part of the MCU. But I do really like the Werewolf by Night. It's really, really awesome, and I hope we get to see more of Jack Russell. Of course, Jack Russell is kind of pulling from the Jack Russell Terrier dog, so wink, wink there, the werewolf. Now it's time to see where the villains rank for these. One of these was kind of tough. I kind of had to really dig into the weeds on this one. But for Werewolf by Night, it's clearly Verussa as the villain. With it being only 50 minutes long, you don't really get a whole lot of villain setup and things like that. She's kind of just a crazy witch hunter lady that's just obsessed with power. I don't know. It was really hard to kind of gauge her with just 50 minutes. So I'm giving her 2 Thanos heads. Typical villain, just consumed by power from the Bloodstone. Gets defeated pretty easily. But I'm going to give her 2 Thanos heads. Now for the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, I had a really hard time figuring out who the villain of this is. So I ended up landing on Drax and Mantis just because of the fact that they kidnap a human being for Peter. They kidnap Kevin Bacon. I mean, that's got to be pretty villainous. They attack cops. Drax flips over a cop car, almost injuring policemen. So I'm going to go with them as the villain. Again, I'm going to give them 2 Thanos heads just because I really had to pull out of the weeds to get that villain out of there. They're good intentions were there to give Peter a really special Christmas. They don't know any better. So I'm going to give them 2 Thanos heads. But those are your villains for these 2 specials, at least what I think. If I'm wrong, go ahead and let me know if you don't think Drax and Mantis are the villains of the story and there's somebody else. Or maybe there isn't a villain and maybe I'm just reaching a little bit. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to really sit there and think, who is the villain of the story and how do we rank them? So that's kind of where I landed at here. Now it's time to hand out the popcorn for Werewolf by Night and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. I'm giving both of these the same rating, 4 popcorns. They're really short, so you don't get a whole lot of story in there, but it's still a fun time. They're great holiday specials to throw on. I'm probably going to throw on Werewolf by Night during the Halloween season just because I really like it. Same thing with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Probably going to throw on this special along with Hawkeye just because to get into that Christmas feel and because I like the MCU so much. So I'm going to give them both 4 popcorns. Really fun specials. I hope they do more of these. It's a lot of fun to get these side stories and kind of build the universe more. Well, those are the popcorn ratings for those 2 specials, but we're not going to roll the credits just yet. Stick around because we're going to go through some news and reactions coming up right now. All right, got one piece of news that I wanted to talk about that I haven't been able to yet on the show. And then we have one reaction for a series that just ended with its final episode last week. So first up, we got Nicholas Hoult, has been cast as Gilderoy Lockhart in Season 2 of Harry Potter. That filming should be starting, I believe, in January or sometime at the beginning of next year so that it can come out next year. We have Season 1 coming out in December, I do believe. But this, of course, Season 2 will tackle the Chamber of Secrets, which is where Gilderoy Lockhart is introduced. Previously played by Kenneth Branagh in the films. But Nicholas Hoult is really great. I'm starting to really like him, especially with him being cast as Lex Luthor. And then, of course, Beast in the X-Men films before that. He's really starting to get into that franchise hopping phase of his career, but he's really good. I'm really excited to see him as Gilderoy Lockhart and see his take on it. Kenneth Branagh, I think, didn't get as much to do as I think he could have done in the movies, but he's still really good. I adore those movies so much. Kenneth Branagh is great in there, but I'm really curious to see what Nicholas Hoult brings to the table as Gilderoy Lockhart. Next up, we have House of the Dragon Season 3 just ended with its final season, and it was awesome, guys. I really love Game of Thrones. I like the House of the Dragon spin-off part of Game of Thrones. It's really, really fun. And Season 3 reminded Game of Thrones fans why they love Game of Thrones. You know, you have all this dragon action, you have all the violence, all the sex and just chaos and backstabbing. It's like everything a Game of Thrones fan wants, and this show reminded why we love Game of Thrones so much. It's really, really awesome. We have Rhaenyra going up against the High Towers again. She has taken over. King's Landing has taken over the crown. You have Matt Smith doing his thing on the side. You have all the kids running around causing mischief and getting lost, and you have all these dragons fighting each other. It's really, really awesome. You're introduced to more characters from extended families and things like that. It's expanding the universe even more, and it's really fun. My favorite part of this entire season was probably when the three dragons meet each other and they're just fucking ripping each other to shreds. It's so cool, and Matt Smith's got to jump in with his dragon and stop him, and it's just really, really fun. I sat there and I watched that episode. I think it's episode 7, and I'm just like, holy shit, I love Game of Thrones, and this is why. It's all this dragon violence and just chaos unfolding. It's really, really awesome. Looking at the popcorn rating for season 3, I'm giving it 5 popcorns. I believe I gave season 1 5 popcorns and season 2 4 popcorns. So season 2, a little bit lacking in the excitement and entertaining factor of the series, but it's still a pretty good season overall. I do really, really like season 3. This is probably my favorite season so far now of House of the Dragon, followed by season 1 and then season 2, of course, at the end. But this was fantastic, and I'm very excited for season 4. I don't remember if they're going to end it after 4 seasons or if they're going to continue going on. I hope they don't overstay their welcome with this one, just like they did with Game of Thrones. With season 7 and 8 kind of got out of hand and really poor in quality. So I hope they kind of tell the story they need to tell and then back away from it and just kind of let it be and then start a new spinoff. We have the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms spinoff with Sir Dunk. Hoping season 2 will come out here shortly. I'm very excited to dive into more of that part of the Game of Thrones franchise. But House of the Dragon is really, really awesome. And season 3 reminded us why we love Game of Thrones so much, and very excited. So check out House of the Dragon. All 3 seasons are streaming now on HBO Max. Also check out the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms spinoff, as well as the original Game of Thrones series as well on HBO. All right, so that'll do it for today's episode. Watch the show every week on YouTube and Spotify. You can also listen to the show on whatever podcast platform you deem worthy. Also, check out and follow the social media pages on X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. The show is everywhere. And then also check out the official podcast at Cinematic, the website for the podcast at cinematic-reviews.com. Until next time, keep it cinematic, everybody.